DAME KIRI TE KANAWA sang Ach, ich fühl's from the second act of Mozart's The Magic Flute. Ach, ich fühl's is but one in a whole string of memorable soprano arias that dot every one of Mozart's operas. In addition to those, however, Mozart composed a considerable body of concert arias and insertion arias. And it's an insertion aria that we hear next, Vado, ma dove. Vado, ma dove, I shall go, but where? An insertion aria by Mozart, number 583 in the Kürschel catalog of Mozart's music. And it was sung by our guest artist this evening, Dame Kiri te Kanawa, with Kurt Masur conducting the New York Philharmonic. Now, what do I mean by calling the aria that we've just heard an insertion aria? Mozart composed it to be inserted in the opera Il Burbero di Buon Cuore by Soler. And that was a fairly common practice of Mozart's and other composers of his period to write works, arias specifically, to be inserted in the operas of others. Here is Dame Kiri te Kanawa, resplendent in her red gown, bowing for the audience, applauding her performance. Dame Kiri will return in the second half to sing the final scene from Strauss's Arabella. But next, Kurt Masur will conduct the players of the New York Philharmonic in Mendelssohn's Italian Symphony. It is one of the sunniest works in the entire orchestral repertory.
Was such a challenge, and the fact that the music is so simple, is so exposed.
Well, you can't stop thinking for a single moment when you do Mozart. There's not a moment that you can just think you can just swan along and it's all just going to come out of your mouth. It's not. And there, you know, when you do the Mozart so-called repeats and returns and things, if you're not really concentrating, you can lose it. You can go to the second, you can go to the ending rather than in the middle bit. Oh. And I've done that a few times too.
What do you think is meant by the Mozart line?
It's hitting the note in the middle as far as I can make out. Each note, one after the other, exacting, and making them spin along as they were just like a string of pearls. No note is louder than the other. You know, sort of, you can't dwell on the notes. You have to make sure you sing them in their equal timing, but also to make the phrase, to actually make it sound finally what he wanted.
Well, you've certainly, you know, your career has been a specialty from Fiordiligi to Donna Elvira. Yeah. You obviously
I've just loved it. It's been such a pleasure. Every time I start any rehearsals and anything I want to do, if I'm really unsure of my voice, I sing Porgi Amor every day and fühls, which I'm actually going to sing in the program. And things like that, I just make sure my voice is in that so-called exact, in tune, really. I keep on saying to the pianist, is it in tune? Because it is a very big problem with Mozart. You've got to hit that note in the middle every time, every note. And make it phrase, too. I
always thought that you were the perfect spinto soprano. When anybody said, what does a spinto sound like? I always thought it was your quality, yes. that kind of plummy, luscious sound.
I never really defined it myself. I just thought that if I could always sing Mozart and if I could always sing Strauss, that would be fine, because my darling singing teacher, Vera Roche, she said to me, you can sing anything you want, but don't try and go back and try and do Mozart and try and be agile and have your voice as light and as in control as you can do now. And she said, you can do all those roles, but just know it's going to get thicker and heavier, and eventually it's going to take its toll. So I decided to stick with Mozart and Strauss, and I was happy that way. It doesn't sort of set up fireworks every night, but it makes me feel good.
Oh, I think it sets up fireworks.
I think if you're happy in yourself with your singing and what you do, and you feel that you're being as good as you can to the composer and to music and making very nice performances and singing the songs correctly, because I really love to sing. That's what I really love to do. I love to be in the rehearsal situation more than anything else. The performance situation is like the end product. But the rehearsal situation with colleagues and friends, and if it happens to be an opera or concert or orchestra or whatever, that is, to me, the most pleasurable time, because you're actually working as a team. And then suddenly you're on stage and it's all gone.
Well, the most creative
yes,
energy.
Time is that working, making the program 6 months or 2 years or 3 years ahead. And suddenly you reach the final date, you're on stage, you've got the dress, and the lights go out or something like that, and you think, no, this is not what we planned. The electricity goes off, and that's happened so many times.
We're about at the midpoint in this live from Lincoln Center telecast of the New York.
I think that Strauss could have written for you. He was, of course, married to a soprano, and what I gather, a very unpleasant lady. It isn't often that sopranos are unpleasant.
Not much. We can name a few, I think.
We can name it, yes.
We won't do that.
Name a few, but they weren't married to Mr. Strauss. still in terms of physical beauty, and beauty of sound that you produced, I would have thought that Arabella was sort of your centerpiece of Strauss music.
Yes, I suppose it's the part that stayed most in my voice. I mean, I could leave it for a year and just pick it up after that time, and it sort of was well situated. You know, it wasn't. I didn't have to sort of like relearn it. You know, sometimes the muscles just don't quite get around the music, and I could just pick it up and sing it straight off. And even from memory too, I could. It stayed memorized with me all the time. But as to the part, I always loved the final scene.
Most of his final scenes are just fabulous to end on.
I felt that every time there was a final scene, whether it be the Martian walking in at that single moment or Madeleine walking down in the so-called moonlight scene, he seemed to make you float on a cloud at a particular time.
Most of the people that I've talked to when I said we were going to have this talk today say that they remember your Marjolaine as definitive.
Some people say that, which is really nice.
Did you love her?
Yes, very much. Yes, very much. I look at life today, and I think that's very, very similar to what's going on in my life, in people's lives. You know, trying to hold back the clock, trying to, you know, make a difference, trying to sort of see a younger lover and seeing herself with a younger person, and just sort of life. Life is like that.
Isn't it interesting that Strauss never wrote a great role for a male voice?
I don't know why that was. I mean, maybe he felt that the female ruled or something. I don't know, because he was very much in love with his wife.
Yes.
And, you know, so I think maybe that was it. Maybe he gave homage to women, to his wife. And so he felt that she ruled. And so he always made sure the lady got the best bit. You sometimes wonder, and this is a terrible thing to say, how a man could write words for a woman like that.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes, it is. I always think, how did he do that? How did he know? How did he know the woman goes through the night sometimes when it's sleepless and she's alone, and the clocks are ticking and they're ticking away the time, which he's trying to hold back, you know. And I don't know how a man can write like that.
I guess that's why he was never really able to write a man's role.
Maybe.
You know, that his ability was to crawl inside the
yes,
head and heart.
And it was amazing because it is so feminine. It's so much of what I feel, and I'm sure women who are even more sensitive and who have more tragedies in their life must feel these sort of ways that Hoffmann style has been able to sort of bring out in that particular, in those words, just those words.
Don't you think this is a wonderful time of your life to be able to say, no, I don't want to do that. I'm having more fun doing this.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to Paris to sing. I want to go to Turkey to sing.
Well, I think a lot of the young looking, what you're saying is that the young kids today have, I think, a tougher time because they really have got to be on that treadmill of singing operas night after night after night. Not consecutively, but as you get older and as you choose what you want to do, yes, you can do things that you want to do and the music you want to do and actually work with the people that you love.
The final scene from Strauss's opera Arabella with Dame Kiri te Kanawa.